And welcome. Another edition of the Tight 10. I'm excited. We had more week 2 preseason games, and now we have film, we have information, we have roster projections. We have so much to get through today. I'm going to jump in. We're going to start at the top with Carnell Tate and just watching some of the clips and film breakdown of what he did in the game and then compare it back to what I saw with Cam Ward. I think all of this is really important because Carnell Tate's a player that's really polarizing in drafts right now. I think he's going pretty high in the 6th round. And when you compare that to other players in history that have been high first round picks, it's not a lot. But at the same time, this offense looks concerning to me, and his role specifically looks a little bit concerning as well. So I'm going to share some clips. We're going to watch all 13 of his routes together and go through it, and then we'll get through some more news and notes. Let's do it, everybody. Starting from the top, Carnell Tate, wide receiver out here on the outside. This is the first pass route that he ran. They switch him. They do a little. I have this on 0.8 speed. Switch him into the slot on the other side. This is the clip that I actually posted on X. This is going to be. I'm going to speed this up actually. This is going to be a pass here, quick, and then you see Carnell Tate just run a quick out. Cam Ward looks directly at Wan'Dale Robinson. It's fine. I mean, that was just a quick play, not a big deal. But we would like to see him be involved in the play. Wasn't even close to being a first read. He was on the backside of the entire play. So something that's not great, but whatever. I mean, it's one play. Doesn't matter. Then we see Carnell Tate on this play. He's on the outside. This is him. This is an RPO. You can see that Cam Ward is reading the defense. Does a fake handoff to Tony Pollard. He sees that the defense is crashing down. He's going to have one-on-one coverage here with Carnell Tate on the outside. Carnell Tate is kind of open, and that kind of hits his hands. I don't know. It could be it's not a bad throw by Cam Ward. It just wasn't. The play just wasn't completed. And again, this is a vertical route. The first route we saw him do like a 2-yard out on the backside of the play. Then we see a vertical route here. This was a little bit more promising because at least, hey, he's the primary option on the RPO, but I don't really like seeing people running more deep routes. And I've talked about that extensively. Let's go to the next play. I'm trying to click it quickly because what ends up happening is we'll get an end zone view, and we don't need to see 2 views of this. This is the best view to watch the tape on. Carnell Tate's on the outside on this play. We'll watch him. This is going to be a nice little long catch and run by Tony Pollard here, where he's just kind of wide open in the flat. This defender falls down. This is Carnell Tate up top. Kind of not involved in the play at all on the backside. Runs a really dingy, kind of slow operating route. He was probably just trying to find a hole in his zone. But yeah, clearly a little hitch. Tony Pollard's very much available here on the outside. Looks like the play was designed to be one of these 2 players. Pollard's open. He runs pretty fast down the sideline, I'd say. He doesn't look like he's lost juice there. It's a decent gain, wide open. So another route that's just okay, that's not worth much from Carnell Tate. Here's the next play that Tate does. This is a 1st and 10. You're going to see him. I believe this is him. Yeah, you're going to see him kind of run a nice deeper in drag-ish route. I'd call it a dig, but he does angle it a little bit. Cam Ward just completely misses him pretty bad. Let's watch it. All right, Cam Ward. He has some decent time to throw. Look, clean pocket. You could see Carnell Tate is going to. This linebacker is staying on this receiver. I believe that's Wan'Dale Robinson. So Carnell Tate's going to be pretty open. This guy's going deep, Calvin Ridley. So safety is going to be kind of watching him. This play should be available, but you have Cam Ward at quarterback. And what ends up happening is you get a pretty sailed opportunity. Carnell Tate didn't really even take advantage of that as much. If it was placed properly, Tate probably could have made a good catch, but he didn't generate enough separation from what I thought there on what I would say is like a pretty easy opportunity to do so. Pretty much getting one-on-one coverage. But anyway, yeah, bad throw by Cam Ward, and that's what we get with Cam Ward. Accuracy issues, especially as we get further and further down the field. Very concerned about that as well. Here's the next play that goes to Alec Imanor. So we have Carnell Tate, I believe, is right here on the outside, left outside receiver for those who are listening on podcast stream. And he just pretty much runs a vertical route down the field. You can see, I think Alec Imanor is this receiver right here. Ward pretty much looks to the right, so he's on the backside of where Ward looks initially. Tate's just basically clearing out on the other side. Oh, he actually gets open. Runs a little hitch. He's pretty open. Cam Ward locks in on his one receiver. He's looking on the other side. Isn't going to go backside. And gets flushed. And there you go, a pass to Alec Imanor. He was open. He was available. He's on the backside of the play. Again, we don't know if this is like what the coaches are trying to prioritize or what, but I would say like not good. Not good offensive operation in totality, and then also not great when it comes to what Carnell Tate is doing. He's just on the outside, like on the backside of plays so far. Carnell Tate is the outside receiver here. This ball should go Imanor. I believe it's like down the sideline. He runs like a little like kind of wheel here. Again, the offensive operation, we're seeing, there's 6 guys on the line of scrimmage. This is going to probably be a play where Cam Ward has to get the ball out quick. I'm trying to remember based off of memory, watching all the plays. They bring a tight end in to help block a little bit because they see the blitz. So he's got his reads, obviously looking to this side of the field where you get pretty much man coverage for all 3 of these receivers. You can see Carnell Tate basically just flashes, like doesn't really run a route. He's just flashing, and that's to keep this corner here. And then Imanor fake inside, does a little like wheel, and Cam Ward takes that opportunity instead of getting the ball out quick here. Underthrows it a little bit, was late on the throw, and that's what you get. Let's get to the next play. We're going to watch all the Carnell Tate pass plays here, routes that he runs, because I think it's important. It's important for us to all see what ended up happening and why they happened. I thought he was a good talent coming out. I am just worried about the role in this offense, and I want to prove it. I want to show you guys why I think that this isn't going to be fruitful for him this season. Right, he's on the outside in the slot. He was technically on the outside originally, and then Wan'Dale Robinson did motion across the formation. You're going to see him kind of press forward. He runs the vertical route. Cam Ward gets the ball out quick. Let's go back. Cam Ward's going to get the ball out quick, basically looking directly at Wan'Dale. Gets the ball out quick to Wan'Dale because he sees that, he's got like 5 guys coming at him. Wan'Dale's pretty much open immediately, and Carnell Tate doesn't even have his head around. The ball's coming out in a second. Yeah, and he's just not even an option. Let's go to the next play. This one is to Tajay Spears. And it looks like there was a problem with the video. See if we can do this one. Another play. Okay. So Carnell Tate here on the outside. This one goes to Daniel Bellinger, who is right here at tight end. Again, we had a little bit of a kind of like 50-50 workload for Daniel Bellinger and Gunnar Helm. So I'm not very interested in Gunnar Helm after that. Carnell Tate running a vertical route here. Really didn't even have his head around by the time the ball had to get out of his hands. I guess I'm just pointing out that like a lot of his routes are requiring more time, and Cam Ward doesn't have much time. He's probably been instructed to get the ball out quick because his offensive line isn't good, which is going to lead to a lot of plays underneath by this guy over here, Wan'Dale Robinson. And I think those plays are fine for fantasy because a lot of times you're playing PPR, half PPR, you're getting good points out of all those plays. Wan'Dale Robinson has been the most targeted player in camp, most receptions by a lot. And it's showing why that would be the case because they have to get the ball out quick. See if there's more plays that I want to show. Yeah, we got some Tajay here. I'm going to try to run through it quick. Carnell Tate at the top of, and he is basically just flashing open. It was a quick play designed for Tajay Spears. Again, he was on the backside, pretty much had nothing that could have happened for him. But it seems like what they're trying to do is get these running backs involved in the pass game, just like quick passes, get easy completions. And all that does is take away from guys that are running deeper down the field, like a Carnell Tate. And again, we've seen him be on the backside of a lot of stuff. He's lined up in the slot here. See what he does. Longer develop route. It's already been a 1.5 seconds. Obviously, he's like not even close to being open at the moment. And that leads to the screen pass because they're just kind of clearing out. Screen pass happens to Tajay. Again, designed work underneath just to get the ball out of Cam Ward's hands quickly. Bad offensive line. That's the type of operation you're going to be running a lot. And there's 2 more plays left of Carnell Tate. He ran every single route with Cam Ward. So the promising thing is he's going to be on the field a ton. The not promising thing is that I don't know when I would play him in fantasy because I just can't really tell you when this offense is going to look good. And I don't know if he'll ever change into a role that's going to be shorter and more available for Cam Ward. Up here, runs kind of, he's somewhat available right now, but obviously Cam Ward's kind of like looking in this direction a little bit, sees that this safety is probably going here. He's looking at Tajay Spears too. Gets pressured, and that's another reason why this is not promising for Carnell Tate. It has less to do with Carnell Tate's ability. It has more to do with the fact that this offensive line is pretty bad. And what he has to do is get flushed out. This is on the backside. So also a really bad play call because naturally quarterbacks are going to roll out to the side that their hand is dominant, and they have no receivers available over here, which is pretty sad. Which is another reason why I'm not wanting to invest in Carnell Tate is because I just don't believe in the offensive coordinator, and then putting Cam Ward in position for success. So Tate's going to work his way back. This guy's going to make Cam Ward fumble. Yeah, I mean, Ward had no opportunity there. That was just terrible. We're talking about the Seahawks backups too. This is not their starting defense. So, and then the last play, we have Carnell Tate at the top here, and you guys can see what ends up happening. But ball is getting out decently quick. He does like a little inside play. You can see he runs. It's like a little like they're kind of playing off of each other. He has the safety over the top. Cam Ward decides to let it loose he rolls out, decides to eventually let it loose to Gunnar Helm, who's wide open. He didn't get his 2 feet down. But again, there was like no opportunity there. A vertical route by Carnell Tate. Pretty much no opportunity for him, especially on the backside again, to not the side that Cam Ward's going to be rolling to do anything. The TLDR here, guys, for me is that I am just not enthused about what's going on with this offensive operation. And it leads me to feel like, again, a lot of times where you're drafting Carnell Tate, you have to get him as your wide receiver 3. And I don't feel confident that I know that he's going to be available or that I know when to put him in. And I would project him for probably close to 800 yards or, 700 yards. And I think that Wan'Dale Robinson is going to be the player that gets more looks on a weekly basis. Yes, we can say, hey, how valuable is a bunch of 5-yard catches? It's more valuable than not getting targeted, that's for sure. I feel pretty confident that Wan'Dale will be the higher target earner, and he will probably be the higher yardage person and receptions person on this team. If things break right for this team, sure, that means that Carnell Tate is going to do a lot. I just don't think this team is going to have things break right. I would not draft Carnell Tate where he's going right now. I think it would have to require maybe like a round or two discount from where it is, and it just isn't going to get there. Yeah, I like Jaden Reed. I like Josh Downs. I like other players that go in the 80s where he's going in the 60s above him. I think they have higher upside and are just probably better football players right now. They've had multiple years in the NFL to show that they're good players. And I think their offenses are going to be built more around those players this season. All right. That is the film review. Let's get into the tweets and all the information that I have curated for you guys. Before we get into that, I will answer some chat questions. There's one chat question. All my league half PPR, is Wan'Dale still worth a look there? Kind of been fading him, but I don't know. Seems like he could be a solid floor play. I think he's going to be in play for a wide receiver 3 like almost every single week. In fact, if like in my own projections, I guarantee you that I'll have him as a top 36 receiver week 1. And sometimes these things play out where it's like, oh, it's ugly. Like Wan'Dale, dude just runs a bunch of short routes. Did a whole research project on this past summer. Short routes are good for fantasy because they get a lot of receptions. They're involved every single day in the offense, every single week in the offense. Wan'Dale proved that he could run deeper down the field too. Building that chemistry, timing, all sorts of stuff is positive. He has a history with Brian Dable. I think all of that works to his advantage. I'm in on Wan'Dale. It's not someone that I'm like hugely prioritizing by any means, but like he goes in such a cheap place that I feel very confident if I'm getting him at like 115 that he's going to produce usable weeks for me on a decent amount. With Ashton Genty probably missing time, would you still double tap running back at the 1-2 turn in one PPR redraft? Yes, I would. I mean, there's guys like Kenneth Walker, Chase Brown, Saquon Barkley. Like, just take your pick of the litter. I named pretty much my favorites there, and then draft them. I think what that does is it creates even more instability. Now we have 3 running backs that are like quote unquote right now like a little bit more questionably available for the early part of the season with Breece Hall, Jeremiah Love, and Ashton Genty. That no, he's not going after any of those guys right now. But what I'm basically getting at is that it's hard to find these running backs because, and now more are falling off with injury radar. Genty is probably going to end up falling behind all of those running backs, probably at like pick 18. I think he should go in the 3rd round. I don't know exactly where he's going to end up because I just don't know what the injury is yet. I think we'll end up getting some sense of like timeline to be missed probably today. We know what the injury is. It's a sprained ankle. We just don't know how bad it is. And then based off of like the Albert Breer report, it was like, hey, we're not going to play Fernando Mendoza early season probably because the Ashton Genty injury. And that just kind of had my ears perk up saying like, is the Genty injury supposed to be like many weeks then? Like be into the season? We have no idea yet. And I think that's important. I frequently say this, but early part of your draft, you're trying not to lose more than you are trying to win. A lot of these players are going to project pretty well. And the differences that you're going to make are going to be the rest of your draft beyond like round 3. That's where you're going to make your differentials happen the most. So I don't think I would take Ashton Genty in the first 3 rounds. For me, like redraft 4th round is probably where I'd take the shot at the moment. Best ball, different. I mean, you can mix things in. I'd still wait for the 3rd round, but he's going at like pick 18 often. I just did like 4 best ball drafts this morning. All right. Let's get into the tweets. All right. Let's start with the Texans. Wide receiver room, they're making trade calls for Kayshon Boutte and Rashad Bateman. Jalen Noel is a vertical slot. Tank Dell is not practicing. I just think they're going to lean into heavy personnel, and Xavier Hutchinson's going to play a lot. I don't think Xavier Hutchinson's worth anything in fantasy. Pretty ugly player. If you watch the film, not very good. But I also don't think Jalen Noel is going to play a lot because I don't think they're going to do 3 wide receiver sets a bunch. They're going to run. They're going to focus on that. They're going to play him in the slot. I don't think they have any plans to play him outside, like, at all. And then Tank Dell may be available later. Who knows? He hasn't been able to prove that he's able to even do contact drills yet in great detail. He hasn't practiced with the first team offense. I just don't think that Tank Dell is going to do much this year either. I don't want anybody other than Nico and Dalton Schultz from this pass offense at the moment. Kayshon Boutte, I'm taking shots on because I think that he will get traded. Or if he stays on the Patriots, I don't mind him late on the Patriots either. Yeah, I don't think Bateman will get traded, especially after the news that happened with his legal potential issues. So I'm taking Bateman as a swing for like Ravens situations and stacks, but I'm not that interested in I don't think he's going to get traded. Brock Purdy talked about Dejon Stribling after the game. Stribling had another nice game. I did a film review of him on Friday last week. If you guys want to go back and watch that, basically he trusts Stribling's hands, and I thought that it was super evident on tape that was the case. He displayed hands on plays where Brock Purdy didn't throw the ball perfectly, but he worked his way back to the ball and extended his hands and brought it in for key third downs a couple times. I thought that was huge. I thought it was also huge that he trusted him on third down, and he talks about that as well. I think things are pretty impressive for Stribling and trending up in a good offense. I would take shots on him. He's starting to go pretty early, but if I had him as like my wide receiver 4, I'd feel decently good about that bet in general. There's multiple things here. So with Kalen Black, RB2 for the 49ers, it seems like he's the best option, quote unquote, for the RB2 role. But we saw him get playing time with Brock Purdy in the preseason game. Jordan James wasn't available, neither was CMC. There's a lot of good quotes about him doing well in pass pro, which I think is huge because, that's part of getting on the field or being relied upon. But we hadn't seen Jordan James yet, and Kalen Black just got back to practice, so he's probably had maybe 5 practices total. And Jordan James comes back, and he's had now 2 practices. I still think this is going to be somewhat 50-50 at the moment because we underrate that Jordan James has last year under his belt and how valuable that is for the team. Even though Kalen Black looked good, we've seen situations where players look good, but it's like, hey, Jordan James, we kind of know what he is, and we feel more comfortable that he knows all the plays, the playbook. He's gotten reps in the past, etc. So I don't feel comfortable in best ball really leaning into either. Redraft, I would take my shots, and I'm still leaning Jordan James, even though the reports have been strong on Kalen Black. I think it's tough for rookies, personally. Trey Harris and Rashawn Slater are going to be back at practice. I've seen Trey Harris fall in drafts. I would take shots on him. There's always a chance that an injury happens, either to QJ or Ladd, and I want a top receiver in this offense, just generally. We've talked about the Texans wide receiver room. We don't need to get into it, but it's basically like, hey, Xavier Hutchinson trades, veteran free agents that they're working out. They worked out Josh Reynolds, Zay Jones. I think Gabe Davis maybe was on that list. I can't remember off the top of my head, but those are some names that have been worked out. And then we know that there's guys like Cedric Tillman that are going to become available as well. Brandon Cooks is out there. There's names floating around. Nick Singleton hasn't practiced since the preseason week 1 game. Unsure what's going to happen there. He was seen on a side field. I'm not really taking shots on him because I think you win like a 1-2 down player later in the season. And I'm not like that excited about that from this Titans offense. We just saw the film. Not very good. Bucky and Kenneth Gainwell, we'll get into them a little bit later, but basically it seems like it's kind of a split backfield with Bucky doing a lot of the early down stuff and Kenneth Gainwell doing some pass down stuff. But we'll get into that in a little bit. So Mike Washington, obviously there was the crazy shopping spree of Mike Washington last night, along with Ashton Genty, who, clearly going to miss some time, but we're not sure exactly if that bleeds into the season or if that bleeds deep into the season or where that is yet. For Mike Washington, the good thing is that Kubiak seems to be insinuating that he's carved out some sort of role, but that he needs to do more than just running the football, like do good stuff on like pass blocking, pass like catching balls, stuff like that. I do think that he can work his way into like a little bit of a timeshare with Genty. I don't think that it's like so significant where Genty's like not going to get 300 plus touches on the season. Does it present some risk to 350? Does it present some risk to 400 even? Yes. But 300 touches is still amazing for a running back, especially going at where he goes. But now we have the injury, and that opens the door more for Mike Washington. I think Mike Washington's an interesting target later. Just investing in Clint Kubiak's running back in general. It seems pretty likely after the injury, Mike Washington was the only running back to do stuff with the first team. It seems likely that he would be the guy that steps up and does stuff. You could get some early weeks out of him. We don't know how significant this injury is just yet. So I think he's an interesting take kind of after like pick 120, 130 maybe right now. I've seen him go 150s now with the injury and stuff. I would definitely take shots on him around there. It's not super clear. So I've got multiple reports on David Montgomery and Woody Marks. Woody Marks has obviously looked good in preseason. There's been positivity from the coach speak. There's been positive information coming out of training camp. But we also like don't have any data on David Montgomery. So I think this is one of those things where it's like we're not going to know until week 1 rolls around how much this split is going to be. There was some reports about more like 50-50-ish. I don't think it's going to be 50-50. I think it could be like 60-40. I still think it's live to be 65-35. I think it's live to be 75-25. We really have no true clue on this. The team spent draft capital to get David Montgomery. He has been, quote unquote, as advertised. So he hasn't lost ground, as we say here, from Aaron Wilson. But Woody's also looked good. And there's always reason to believe that the team would maybe want to, conserve some of David Montgomery, but, we don't really know. So I think this is just one of those things where you got to lean in and believe. I still think that David Montgomery will get like a 65-35 split, which I think is pretty valuable where he goes now compared to a lot of other running backs. But, I've seen him fall a little bit in drafts. I'd still take him. Maybe I'd probably put Bucky above him now, but there's like this running back cluster, and I would say he squarely belongs in that running back cluster where it's like Bucky and Quinshon Judkins. I'd take him above Judkins because I think the offense will be a little bit better. And I think he'll get more pass catching work than he does. Emeka Egbuka, there's mixed reports on whether he's going to be available week 1. Peter Report thinks he will be. And then, there were some doctors and PT people that responded to this and said, hey, I think he'll be available given that he's in sneakers. And then there's others that have said like, well, we don't know if there's like orthotics in the sneakers or whatever. Who knows? I'm still taking shots when he falls into the 4th round, which has happened lately. Took him this morning in the 4th round. This could just be like a few week injury to start the season. And I think when you get into the 4th round, you can start taking those types of chances. I wouldn't do it in the first 3. It's also possible he's fully healthy. So on Rico Dowdle and Jalen Warren, we have more information than this given the preseason game. But in the preseason game, they split basically 50-50 by drive. And and both got the opportunity to play whatever role, whether that was passing, pass catching, pass pro, or running the ball. Alex Cazoro believes that Rico Dowdle will have the touch/carry advantage. I had my highest value draft, highest leverage draft. I don't know what you want to call it. My FFPC main event, and I took Rico Dowdle. And this is full PPR over Jalen Warren. I just believe, based on the research that I've done in the past, that people that have proven to take on a heavy workload, technically usually end up getting that big workload again. And I think that leans into Rico Dowdle. I think he'll do more of the goal line stuff too. I don't think he's going to be a complete zero in pass catching either. So I tend to lean towards Rico Dowdle in this, but I think that it's fine to pick and choose who you think, because this is just my belief, right? I guess I'm the expert, but at the same time, like, yeah, sure, we could see it be the other way. And in the preseason game, Jalen Warren got the first reps, and who knows if that's ceremonial or not. Moving on, it sounds like Caleb Johnson is at the bottom of the running back depth chart. He also didn't look good in the preseason game, so I think he's probably going to get cut. That means he might be someone of interest to other teams here in the near future. Najee Harris has insignificant money. He got like the veteran minimum with no guarantee, but he's going to be a contributor for the team. And then we saw like roster projections today that showed that he, it looked like Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary are the guys that are like more roster bubbly. So we're going to see what ends up happening there. They could keep all four. I feel like they'll go three, because they also have Patrick Ricard, and they have 3 tight ends that they will definitely keep, maybe more than that. And there's offensive line stuff that I think they want to do too. So I think it'll be a roster squeeze, but we'll see what happens. There's belief that Malik Neighbors will be ready for week 1, so more confirmation on that. Isaiah Likely is still option 2 in the offense. Malachi Fields keeps setting himself for wide receiver 2 in the offense. We saw Malachi Fields in the game. We'll get to it in a little bit. Operate basically as that wide receiver 2. He didn't do well on film. Like, he didn't get targeted. Slayton did a lot more, but he did operate as the wide receiver 2 in that he played the first few snaps and then came off the field after that. So, yeah, I thought that was pretty positive. I am taking shots on Malachi Fields late in drafts. Devon Vele, clear wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2, while Jordan Tyson is out, based on this report by Matthew Paris. I know a lot of people are, thinking about Bryce Lance, Barron Brown, etc. But I think that the answer here is just, it's Devon Vele. Take your shots there. I think Juwan Johnson's one of my favorite targets in that offense right now. We saw a bunch of Kendre Miller. It seems like he has opportunities to rise into that running back 2 job while Alvin Kamara is out. We don't know how long Alvin Kamara is going to be out. We just know that he's injured and probably going to miss some time. Rondre Stevenson, he's gotten the first touch of every period, team period, and then started and played the whole 2-minute drive. The belief is that Rondre's a starter with Travion obviously mixing in. We have so much on this, but basically the TLDR is, Travion actually left practice today, so that doesn't help Travion with injury off of a cut. And Ramondre, the other reports were basically getting at, Greg Bedard was saying, it's just very clear that Ramondre is better than Travion in pretty much every aspect of the game right now. Pass pro, running routes, like being where he needs to be, running the right play, all sorts of stuff like that, which I think are all critical. And then others have basically said, Andrew Callahan have basically said similar things where it's like, this isn't a 50-50 split. This is like Ramondre is the RB1 and then there's Travion. So I've had Ramondre ranked above Travion this entire time. I have him right after that Judkins and Bucky Irving group. So I feel pretty confident in him in a good offense, getting a lot of work. There's the upside of Travion getting injured. There's the upside for Travion where Ramondre gets injured, but it works both ways. So, Yeah, I just think we should take shots on Ramondre. Devin Achane had some big plays in joint practices against, I think it was the Giants. Yeah, I don't think this guy's worth fading. You're gonna get a ton of work, and he's just a game breaker. And you're gonna see opportunities where he like has big weeks. He's getting a lot of receptions. He's gonna get a lot of big rushes. I still think he's a really good football player. You don't like fade that. This is a similar situation to Ashton Jinty. It's a little bit worse, I will say that, but he's gonna get the ball a ton. So I'm taking my shots on him. Probably like pick 15 or 16 or so. Terrence Ferguson, basically, Sean McVay was, or sorry, Terrence Ferguson was saying that he's basically been rotating through every single like receiving position, the F, the Z, the Y, the X. I made the joke that it's like every letter of the alphabet. But again, I think of him as the potential to be a handcuff player in general. So you're getting like what I think will be the tight end one for the Rams, who will be on the field for a lot of pass plays, and then I think that you're also getting like if Devontae Adams or Puka Nakua go down, you're getting like a top two pass catcher in this offense, which I think is huge. Really strong potential for that. Uh, I've said this on other forums. I think that it's big to get a top two pass catcher, especially contingent um, at tight end in any offense. But this is the Rams offense we're talking about. That's huge. Kenneth Walker, again, I keep seeing workhorse doing everything, pass catching, running. I have him at RB5. Invest in Kenneth Walker. This scare is really injury risk. There's injury risk with Jonathan Taylor. There's injury risk with a lot of other players. So I think he could do worse. I think he's a really good football player and is going to have a lot of work in a Mahomes-led offense. We'll leave it at that. I don't know how good the offense will be, but it won't be a bad offense with Mahomes. Travis Hunter, they said that so basically they've said like, hey, he is prepared to take on expanded role in the offense if like someone gets injured. But then there was a contradictory report that said like he's basically only the backup to Brian Thomas. I don't know what to believe on this. Like I would think that, yeah, maybe at first they lean into some other receiver. They go 12 personnel and then they put Travis Hunter in. But eventually, like if Travis Hunter does well, I would believe that they would put him in more because now we have Jacoby Myers in a brace. We don't know what that means. We don't know how long Jacoby Myers is going to be out. But I would believe that he would get an expanded role regardless. All right, looking at the chat really quickly while I go through this. Is Ty Johnson still not practicing? I haven't gotten any information on Ty Johnson since he was out. I think he was like on the rehab field recently, but he has not practiced. Would you take Allen in FFPC main events? Which Allen are we talking about? Josh Allen? Okay. Josh Allen, I'm not because I'm a huge proponent of taking quarterbacks later. I think, especially in these FFPC drafts, that it's very tough to build a running back room that's substantial if you forego doing that in like round 4, which I think is where Josh Allen goes in FFPC main event drafts. I can't do it, man. I just can't do it because I think that I can get Lamar in round 6 or I could get or 7. I saw him going round 7 in my main event. And that's like after enough running backs and I love Lamar and then Jaden Daniels and Drake May and then even later like talking like round 13 you can get Brock Purdy and Kyler Murray, like guys that are just like gonna score points regardless. I just don't feel like going at quarterback is the right move. I think it's pretty deep. You can save roster spots. Like I'm a 2 quarterback max player in redraft usually. The year that I drafted quarterback high, I went 1 quarterback with Jalen Hurts. I know that that's not like the recommended strategy, but that's my strategy. I like to save roster spots for handcuffs. But yeah, I'm not into taking Josh Allen. Price is too high. Did big gorilla draft in March, and Stribling went undrafted, so he is on waivers. How much fab? Ooh, it's gonna be expensive. I think to even put like a reasonable bid out there, because we're talking about a guy that's going like, you know, round 8 or 9 in these big gorilla drafts now, maybe even 6 in some and 7 in some too. I think you're going to have to put down at least 50%, and I think that's a bit rich, to be quite honest. I would probably go like 40. But it's such a long season. It's such a long season. I don't think he's like a guarantee to crush. I like him. I thought he did well on tape, but there's also situations where he's like the fourth pass catcher on the team in a lot of games, and I feel like it's a lot of fab to put down for a situation where it's like this isn't a like handcuff running back went down situation where if Mike Washington was available and Ginty was out for the full season, I would be going ham on that situation, right? Like that would be like a obviously over 50%. I think you'd end up spending, you know, money on Mike Washington that's like close to 70% because you're getting like a full season of a player. Like week 1, you're probably not starting DeJon Stribling. You don't know how much he's going to play. And then if he doesn't play a lot week 1, you're not going to feel comfortable week 2. So it's going to be at least 3 weeks for you to feel comfortable putting him into your lineup. I guess you get the free look week 1, but it's just, yeah, I think 40% is where I'd go. He'll probably go for more. If you really want him, you're going to have to go like 60% probably. 1 point PPR, should I trade Olave for Javonte straight up? Other receivers are CD, Burden, Lamb, Reed, and Godwin. Running backs are Brown, Swift, Warren, and JCM. Yeah, I think it's close enough to where I would do it because it seems like your running back room isn't as good as your pass catchers, and like you're gonna struggle. You're not gonna struggle to find times to put in Olave because he clearly slots above Burden and Waddle right now. But you're definitely gonna put in Javonte anyway, and there's always the chance that Burden, Waddle, Reed, like Godwin, you find enough of those players that ascend. I like all of them, kind of actually in drafts. So yeah, I would make that trade. All right, moving back into the tweets. Sorry for the detour. Moving back into the tweets. Chris Rodriguez and Bashal Tootin didn't play in the preseason game. I think that just means that they're both basically starters. They're going to be sharing a lot. I still like to take Tootin. He needs to go after Bucky Irving for me, and he's starting to fall a little bit. I still like to take him because I think that he can still win that job. But it's like if I had one draft and redraft, I'm not taking him. It's just hard to do because it's a very similar conversation to the Josh Allen thing. Week 1, you're like worried about what this guy's going to do, and you're spending like a 4th or 5th round pick on him. And so you're getting squeezed at running back already, who he might be your running back 2. And you're not even sure if he's going to get goal line work, how much pass catching work. It's a little bit concerning. Best ball is where I like to invest in Bashal Tootin. There's an article from James Boyd, who covers the Indianapolis Colts. He talked about the Josh Downs, Keenan Allen situation. He said, there's a small subtlety that I recognize, but it was Keenan Allen's going to be a factor specifically, like particularly on 3rd downs, which again gets back to the other reports from Jake Arthur and others who have said that this is mainly a specialist role for Keenan Allen once Alec Pierce is back. So again, this is going to impact Josh Downs. Yes, it is. But I think the amount that that the ADP is probably like dropping over time is probably not is over correcting for this Keenan Allen situation. If Josh Downs is good and he's playing a lot, like he's going to be doing well in fantasy. I like taking him. He went in the 9th round of my FFPC main event draft, which was the day after the Keenan Allen information, and I took him. Pretty easy for me. The Packers Interesting here, streamlining targets in the offense. Again, they're not rotating receivers much. We saw something similar in the preseason game. They're trying to get more plays, get out in and out of the huddle faster. I think that we're seeing like a quicker operation. I think there's just a lot of things that are trending upwards for this Packers offense when it comes to the pass catchers specifically, and then obviously Jordan Love. I think they're going to be passing more. It'll be an 11 personnel more. I think that means Jaden Reed's going to be on the field more, and they're going to play faster. All of that is just positive stuff for the pass game. So I am investing in Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, and Matthew Golden across the board. I did a pod with Cups Analytics. I'll just call them Cups Analytics. We had some crazy ranking differences. I'm like very low on Marvin Harrison, as you can see. Go check that out on Fantasy Football is live. Subscribe there. We got the information that Rashad Bateman was arrested for domestic violence charges. He had been missing randomly throughout the offseason without information on injury or anything. So a little bit concerning. There was a thread by Drew Davenport who talked about how he doesn't think this will impact this season for Rashad Bateman. So I'm still taking late round shots on Rashad Bateman. Let's get to the film reviews now. We'll do the Steelers film review. I talked about this already. We got Jalen Warren and Rico Dowdle that basically traded off. I don't think that it was a guarantee that that's how this is going to work. They traded off every single possession. I think that Jalen Warren may have gotten like a ceremonial start. I don't know for a fact, but it can easily, those are things that happen sometimes in preseason. Jeremy Bernard played mainly on the outside while Roman Wilson played in the slot. I think everything's pointing to Roman Wilson being the slot receiver in 11 personnel to start the season. Bernard playing on the outside is kind of interesting because if he does end up winning a wide receiver 3 role, that would leave the slot a little bit more open, and that could mean good things for Michael Pittman, who would maybe play the slot role as a big slot. I expect that to happen eventually. I did take Roman Wilson in a draft recently, though, because it was super deep, and I was like, am I getting leverage in this contest because nobody's taking this guy that everyone just thinks is like some ugly duckling? Figured with a Rodgers stack, it might make sense. Especially because Jeremy Bernard is like always drafted, but then this other guy isn't. And I know that he's probably not good, but he's going to play. So, and then they split the tight end stuff with Freiermuth playing like the pass catching role and Darnell Washington playing the blocking role. It wasn't like super clean, but that's kind of the roles that they ended up playing. I'm still taking a lot of shots on Freiermuth late in drafts. Talked about Jacoby Myers being in a brace. We don't have any more information than that. The film review for the Panthers, Tate McMillan played in the slot. So did Jalen Coker. They didn't come off the field. Both those guys are going to play a ton. I think they're both solid where they go in drafts. Not super excited about the pass offense in general, but most of the work is going to get funneled to them, and they're both pretty good at football. Tight end roulette again, Mitchell Evans and Tommy Tremble, Jatavian Sanders. It's just going to be a mix. I don't take shots on this tight end room, and Darren Waller didn't play, but then we had the report today that not even sure that Darren Waller is going to make the team. So we'll see what the situation ends up playing out. I think I'm not taking Darren Waller anymore given that, but I'm not taking any pass catcher other than these two in the offense. Jonathan Brooks played pretty much every snap with the starters. Obviously, Chuba Hubbard has been out. He scored a touchdown on a goal line play in the end zone. Chuba Hubbard, there was a report today that he's like trending towards week 1. Also, like a week ago, there was some information that led me to believe that he was going to be back soon anyway, because he was doing conditioning work with Darren Waller, which made me feel like, hey, this guy's like maybe okay. And so, yeah, I think the way that I'm playing this now is I want more Chuba because he's falling in drafts. He's going in like the hundreds sometimes. I took him in my FFPC main event. I think it was in round 10. It was pretty late. It's hard to get running backs there. So I'm like taking some shots. He'll at least have an early season role. So I'm excited about that. And we've seen this like Panthers running back spot be valuable in the past. Hard to find running backs that are going to contribute. So the Jets film review. So they moved Mason Taylor around. He was inline, slot, backfield. He's doing diverse things, which I think is just like another thing that's going to eat at Kenyon Sadiq's role once he gets back. Because it's like, okay, well, they can use Mason Taylor out wide sometimes. They can use Mason Taylor like inline. So he just does enough to where he could be annoying to Kenyon Sadiq. And I don't think he's like bad. So I don't know that you're going to get much from Sadiq until like later in the season, and even then, he's competing with slot reps with Omar Cooper, and Cooper's at least been around. So I don't know. I have not taken much Sadiq recently, given the injury. It's a lot of practice for a rookie to miss. That's for sure. Two wide receiver sets were mainly A.D. Mitchell and Garrett Wilson. A.D. Mitchell is one of my bigger targets later in drafts right now. Omar Cooper played primarily in the slot. Again, I didn't think he looked lost. I thought he looked fine out there. So all the like Isaiah Williams stuff doesn't have me concerned anymore. I think he's falling a lot in drafts too. Like I think he's in a spot where it's good to take him because it's good to take a rookie that's a first round pick that's probably going to end up playing a lot by mid to late season. Yeah, I think he's worth a shot. Braylon got all the work with the first team offense. There was no Breece Hall or Isaiah Davis. Personnel was pretty even with 12 and 11 personnel. So two wide receivers, two tight end sets seem decently prominent. And they had, the reason why I see a signal with that is because they had everyone available. So I think that's like important to note. They had Geno and they had like the three wide receivers available, and then they didn't have Kenyon Sadiq. So but the fact they still went two tight end sets was interesting to me. I think they're going to lean into that. That just takes away from like maybe Omar Cooper if they don't play him on the outside that much. Yeah. So we'll see what ends up happening there, but I'm not like, I didn't come away like feeling terrible about this Jets offense. I felt pretty good about Garrett Wilson, A.D. Mitchell, and then, Breece Hall too, once he gets back into the mix. We saw Christian Watson get some like nice underneath work, which is good because that could lead to a lot more fantasy production from him. We don't want him to just do deep stuff. So that was positive. The film review it was a long drive. The first 6 plays were Matthew Golden and Christian Watson. They didn't come off the field. Then like play 7 and 8, they came off the field, but then they came back for play 9 and 10. So sometimes when offenses have like long drives, especially in the preseason, take the players off the field. But the fact that they came back out and got in there like relatively quick is good. And then Golden was out for play 11 and Watson is off for the final play. I don't think that really means too much. I still think that Watson and Golden and Reed are going to play a ton. Marshawn Lloyd got 2/3 of the snaps. Chris Brooks was back and he did some of like the pass plays. But Lloyd still got some of the pass plays, and we saw his touchdown where he caught like a nice, he had like a little option route and he was the first read on the play. At least that's what Jordan Love said. And they got the ball out to him quick and he caught a touchdown, and there was all sorts of positivity around him. He's the clear RB2. Really excited about that. I think that there's significant opportunity for him in this offense if something happens to Josh Jacobs, and maybe a complimentary role in general. He's been a priority target for me in drafts. Other things, they played a lot faster. So that means like they talked about already, like I think Matt LaFleur talked about how he wants to operate a little bit faster. The beat said this, like tempo, more plays, etc. And they were operating like 3 seconds faster in the preseason so far. So I'm, again, leaning into more plays, more passing, more 11 personnel, things that are positive for the receivers. Broncos I was excited about because we saw like a lot of information here, but Bo Nix looked good. No signs of him like looking off at all coming off the injury, which I think is huge. RJ Harvey played every snap on the first drive and then sat. He caught a nice touchdown on a wheel route where he like kind of juked out the linebacker, and they put the ball over the top for him. caught the ball. He looks like a natural receiver. Sometimes we overrate how good a rookie is. I know the coach speak's been really positive on Jonah Coleman, who came in after RJ Harvey, by the way, next drive, and RJ Harvey never came back in. But we've seen RJ Harvey get a decently large workload in the NFL. If something happened to J.K. Dobbins, I think that they would ramp up some of RJ Harvey's work, and then they could lean on Jonah Coleman to do like between the 20s work, and then there's RJ Harvey doing other stuff. Like, we don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but the fact that he has this like receiving role, I'm starting to like feel like we're just doing too big of a fade on RJ Harvey this season, even though like there's not super positive information about him running between the tackles, but outside the tackles, he seems like he's doing decently well. And then we have the receiving work. So I don't know. He's not, if I have one draft, I'm not taking him, but like best ball stuff where I'm doing portfolio based drafting, I think he's worth mixing in more than the 2% that I feel like most people have right now. I would want to be maybe like 6% or even with the market with where he's going. So Jonah Coleman came in the next drive. I said this, but are we sure Coleman would definitely take over all of the Dobbins role? I don't think that's a guarantee. They did a lot of 11 personnel with Jalen Waddle, Cortland Sutton, and Pat Bryant, and they didn't have a rotation. Like Marvin Mims wasn't playing, but they didn't put in Troy Franklin, which was huge. So I think that means to me that Pat Bryant is going to play a lot. And then these guys aren't going to rotate as much as we've seen in the past with the receivers. Waddle and Bryant got a lot of Z and slot reps, so they just kind of traded back and forth. I think TLDR, like super positive for Pat Bryant, super positive for Jalen Waddle, and Cortland Sutton as well because he was out there a ton. Though I think that I'm more interested in Pat Bryant. Then Evan Ingram stayed, he stayed in and he seemed like he was their full-time tight end. He worked in line a decent amount, did some slot work. He was outside. I just like the fact that he was playing more than I thought he would when they went with like their full starters here, basically, other than J.K. Dobbins. So I think he's a good late round dart throw. He just has like an ugly stink about him, and sometimes like he didn't really get the playing time last year. If he gets the playing time, then he's like an interesting dart throw for best ball drafts. So I'm excited. I just took him actually in this draft that's on my other screen over here. Cyrus Allen, KC Sports Network, they were talking about him, and they basically said like he's their best man coverage beater. So I just thought that was interesting because it's like you're talking about wide receiver 4 on a team. He's your best man coverage beater. Pretty bad, but also like that means that he could potentially earn a role long term for this team. Nobody wants to draft Samaje Perine, but Taj Brooks was on the roster bubble. Sounds like he's going to make the roster, but again, there's no option behind Chase Brown if he gets hurt that they're willing to use. They've shown that they are willing to put in Samaje Perine to do rushing work and obviously pass down work stuff too. I think that Samaje Perine's not a bad last round dart throw right now. It feels like I have a lot of last round dart throws that are available. So I'm just kind of like cycling through those and doing it based off of like what the team need is. Moving on, we have some AD Mitchell buzz. There was some chemistry buzz from the spring and building all summer. And then last night we saw it. It was a good skill set match with Geno. Again, I think he's potentially a long shot Alec Pierce replacement, or the next Alec Pierce, like guy that just has like a big season, kind of out of nowhere. But again, it's really the skill set match with Geno and the chemistry that's kind of leading me to believe that. Good pick again because he's like their clear wide receiver 2. On the Athletic Football Show pod, James Boyd. Now this was, something that they recorded a couple weeks before, or not a couple weeks, but maybe like a couple days before. But it still seems pretty ambiguous whether Alec Pierce is going to be available week 1. And then he also said he hadn't seen him go full speed. Doesn't think he'll be himself early in the season. Again, this is more reason to invest in Josh Downs, Tyler Warren. Those are the two guys that I want in this offense more than anybody else. Also said that Josh Downs is doing inside and outside work like he did in joint practices versus the Patriots. He won his routes on the inside. Again, if he's playing on the outside, it's huge for his projection. I'm excited about Josh Downs. Film review with the Commanders, those 3 plays with Jaden Daniels. So we can't read too much into this, and I think people will probably do that. But Diggs only lined up in the slot, and then they went into a 2 wide receiver set, and they took him off the field. I feel like if it was a major game and there were situations where they wanted to keep him out there, 1, they would probably go 11 personnel. 2, I think he can play on the outside still. So I'm not worried about it. But yeah, like this is something that's a little slightly more concerning than original. Terry McLaurin took all 3 snaps on the outside. Treylon Burks took all 3 snaps on the outside as well. Again, there's probably a wide receiver 3 by committee out there. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt and Rachaad White didn't play. Katron Allen was the clear running back 3. He played with the starters. Chig got all 3 snaps, which I thought was huge. I think he's going to play a ton this season. I've talked about him as kind of a contingent upside bet at tight end too, because he's 1 injury away with 2 older receivers out there that could easily get injured. McLaurin was injured last year. Stephon Diggs injured 2 years ago, and now going into age 33 season. Being 1 injury away and attached to a decently ascending quarterback, I think is always interesting for tight ends. And then Ben Sinnott seemed like he was tight end 3. They did do 12 personnel under center play action. The offensive line looked terrible. We'll see how that plays out. But for now, I think you want to invest in Stephon Diggs still. If I'm taking my TLDR, and then Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt's another one that I'm investing in with this offense, and Chig Okonkwo. Those are my 3 targets in this offense. And we have some breaking news. All right. I need to take 1 second here to talk about this. And I'm going to tweet on it too. But Kayshon Boutte's been traded to the Houston Texans. I am covering this live. I will talk about this. I'm going to tweet about it. Give me 1 second. Goodness gracious. This is crazy. Okay. So 1, we did think that trade was going to happen. So that's good. But we just did. And I already talked about how I didn't think that it was valuable to take any of these other receivers. And guess what? That was the right answer. There was no reason to take those other receivers at all because we knew that they were alive to take somebody else on their team. And now they did. Look, they added Kayshon Boutte to their offense. I think we're in a situation here where we need to be cognizant of adding guys like that. I guarantee you he's gonna start and play on the outside for them. They needed that guy to be there. This allows Nico Collins to play the Z sometimes because Kayshon Boutte can play the X. I think that this is awesome. If you're doing back stacks, you take Kayshon Boutte. I think he's going to play a lot. Very much worth a late round pick right now. This is huge for the offense too because they were lacking talent. I think you got to lean in, guys. This is one where I'm taking shots on Kayshon Boutte in drafts late. I think he'll step in and play a very strong role for this offense. I don't think they're going to rotate as much at that position, given the fact that they're getting Kayshon Boutte. I don't care what the draft capital is. Like it could be a round 7 pick. I just think that he's a decently talented receiver that can step into a role that they absolutely need. And they gave up draft capital to get him, which I think is huge. So I would take shots on Kayshon Boutte late in drafts right now. I'm going to go to the chat and see if there's any questions. What happened to DK week promos? Man, I don't have answers to that. I don't see any questions, but I am, again, just going to say this. I would take shots on Kayshon Boutte late in drafts right now with all of this happening. If you have questions, please ask. Going to move forward. Jordan James returned to practice. I talked about that. Saquon Barkley, this is interesting. So with Saquon, early on in training camp, Tank Bigsby was mixing in a bunch with Saquon. That waned over the past couple of weeks, where Saquon has ramped his workload. He talked about how that was the plan. I think Tank is a great handcuff. I just don't think he's going to take much away from Saquon. I'm drafting Saquon confidently at that early part of the second round. Film review on the Ravens. Okay. There was a play. This was with Tyler Huntley, but Jacoby Lane played 100% of the snaps in one wide receiver, two wide receiver, and three wide receiver sets. Mainly played X, but he moved into Z sometimes too. Lane came out when Huntley came out. So to me, he's the clear like wide receiver 2 or 3 in the offense, depending on what happens with Rashad Bateman. Devontae Walker left the field for one wide receiver set, so that to me means that Jacoby Lane is, that clear wide receiver above him. Devontae Walker seems like he is the wide receiver 4. Elijah Surratt came on very late. Seems like he's low in the pecking order. Sometimes this happens, and then we'll see him like work himself back into that into things later. I still would think that he's the wide receiver 5 on this team. And it just depends on what injury happens. I think that Devontae Walker is better slated to back up Rashad Bateman than these other 2 receivers. And then if something happens to, Jacoby Lane or Zay Flowers, I think that's where you might see Elijah Surratt come on the field. Nothing else major there. Chiefs RB situation, we saw Kenneth Walker played 2 snaps, then DeMercado came in next, but went back and forth between him and Emmett Johnson. I think that Emmett Johnson's the guy that I want to own here. So I'm taking shots on him late in drafts right now too. Not very interested in Amari DeMercado or Brashard Smith. Moving forward, I've got an FFPC main event draft tonight that I'm doing with Crack Rock and Alex Cups. So very excited about that. Make sure you guys join. We'll put a live link out there later today. George Kittle was activated off the PUP. He has a few weeks to ramp before week 1, but he might not play week 1. They'll have a lot of time to rest in between. Could be available for week 2. We'll see what happens, but regardless if he misses week 1, like I'm excited about him. I think he's an easy click where he's going. It's hard to find tight ends that are as talented as he is, even if he's coming off of a major injury, going where he's going. Talked about Woody Marks and David Montgomery earlier, so I'm going to speed past that. Tyrone Tracy on the do not draft list for me. He had a fumble in his preseason game after having the pass pro blocking mistake. He's been getting more special teams reps now. Najee is a direct threat to Tracy's offensive role per Dan Dugan. So I'm just out on Tyrone Tracy. I'm not drafting him. I don't care how far he falls. I don't feel like I'm winning much if I get a good value on Tyrone Tracy. Malik Davis looked good in the preseason game. He scored a touchdown on a nice little like option route. Had some nice runs. Clarence Hill and Jeff Cavagnaw, who cover the team, believe that he's secured the RB2 role. Nick Harris also believes that he's secured that role. And then Todd Archer today wrote about it as well and believed that he's secured this RB2 role. I think it's huge. I think that he's a priority target for me at the end of drafts right now. In Best Ball Mania, I think that he's max going to be 15% drafted at the end of all of this. So priority target, I feel like he should go in every single draft, but he's not going to. But priority target for me, big leverage on the field if you get him and Javonte Williams goes down. Christian McCaffrey returned to practice. Seems like it's NBD for him with the tightness and nose expected. A lot on Ramondre versus Travion. I already talked about this earlier, but Ramondre's better at everything. Again, Travion was injured today. We'll see what happens there. Chris Bell chatter. There was some information on Chris Bell, and according to Dolphins talk, we will see him week 1. He was shed his non-contact practice jersey today, so that means he's presumably doing contact drills. One of my other favorite last round flyers. I basically have told you like 10 guys that I like now that are late round flyers, but I would just be mixing all of them. Chris Bell, Malik Davis, Seth McGowan, who I'm going to talk about in a bit too. There's just a large swath of names. Samaje Perine being another. Yeah, I would take shots on all these guys. Clear love of Chris Rodriguez from Liam Cohen. He just pretty much talks about like him maximizing opportunities, bringing physicality, all sorts of stuff. I don't think that means he's going to have like this crazy role, but I feel like he's just going to be a thorn in Bashal Tutin's side for a bit to start the season. Offensive observations for the Dolphins, Jalen Tolbert and Tutu Atwell both sound like they're on the roster bubble. There was a projection this morning about the roster for the Dolphins, and it said that it didn't have Tutu Atwell on the roster. Jalen Tolbert did make the roster, but I think, again, this is just going to be wheels up for Caleb Douglas and Chris Bell playing time for the season. They're going to play a ton. Chris Bell, maybe not at the beginning, but by their week 6, game or right after the bye is what I mean. He's gonna play a ton. So I'm excited about drafting him. Tank Dell hasn't practiced in a while and seems like he's not going to play week 1, which, again, you just saw the Kayshon Boutte news. And if you weren't listening when I was talking about it, Kayshon Boutte is someone I would draft and I would prioritize right now because I think he is going to get a big role. Without any like further details, I just think that he's going to end up with a big role for this team. Because I think he's a really good fit for that offense. And I don't think Tank Dell is going to be, you're not going to get much from Tank Dell or Jalen Noel or Xavier Hutchinson, so I wouldn't invest in anybody else. These are the 2 receivers that I would take. We had reports, this is hilarious. We had reports that Kayshon Boutte was mentioned by a third Texans source. I'm going to quote tweet this while we're sitting here. Yeah, so Kayshon Boutte's on the Texans. There we go. Again, I've tracked this whole offseason where I've said, hey, look, there's Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, Debo. They all had like multiple reports pointing to the same thing. And then this happened with Kayshon Boutte, where there was John Alexander and Aaron Wilson and nationals like Adam Schefter and others that were saying like, hey, they're like, keep an eye on this. And boom, there you go. It happens. That's why this is important. What I'm doing, where I'm tracking and I'm telling you, hey, there's 3 guys that are saying the same thing. That's where I think that this is really important to pay attention because it's giving us a signal and you can be days and weeks and months ahead of information based off of that. I'll get to the George Kittle thing in a minute because there's a question in the chat. I talked about this. So this was before Deshaun Watson was named the starter. But yeah, I said I don't know who Monken will name week 1 starter, but if it's Watson, I promise he will just be a punching bag for the O-line while they gel, and they'll go to Shedeur. Monken wants Shedeur to run a cleaner pre-snap operation, but it seems like he's been the better QB. Again, once they go to Shedeur, which is going to be a few weeks into the season, this whole operation the passing offense will do much better. And I understand like the negative EPA per play, et cetera. That all comes back to like sacks, interceptions, stuff like that just don't matter for fantasy that much. Like he takes more chances down the field. He's more accurate than Deshaun Watson. The beat reporters have also said that they have also said that they're more likely to run the ball a lot more with Deshaun Watson. I think that the offense will open up once Shedeur is out there. So your buy lows are going to be like week 3 or something like that for your KC Conception, your Harold Fannons, your Denzel Bostons, whatever it is. Wait a couple weeks into the season, and they'll pay off significantly. Ben Van Sumeren, this is underrated, is unlikely to make the roster for the Bills, which I think helps Dalton Kincaid to be on the field more, to not have a fullback. So, leaning more into 2 and 3 tight end situations and 11 personnel where Dalton Kincaid is on the field. Okay, the Ginty thing threw everyone for a loop last night. Again, I've already talked about it, but I wouldn't draft him until round 4. He's going off the board much earlier than that. It's just not valuable to me to get like a little bit of closing line value on that situation. Mike Washington, I wouldn't take till like the 130 range or so right now. Moving past that, man, there was so many tweets on this that I had last night. What a crazy situation. I saw in one of my best ball drafts, somebody got him at 109, which is pretty late. So that has a chance to break fantasy, but again, we don't know how long Ginty's going to be out. So again, like maybe overreacting to that whole situation. All right, I'll do the quick Titans film review. We already reviewed all of the tape with Carnell Tate, but here's my take. So Carnell Tate is the Z, Calvin Ridley is the X, Wan'Dale Robinson lined up in the slot. Wan'Dale came off in 2 wide receiver sets. I could easily see him staying on sometimes, like with Ridley coming off. Ridley didn't look very good out there. The Titans rarely did any of that 3 wide receiver set stuff, so not even really that concerned about it anyway. 2 wide receiver stuff anyway. And then all 3 wide receivers came out at the same time. So this is your like top 3. Imanor played a couple of snaps with the ones. So that signals that he's the wide receiver 4. He came in for Calvin Ridley. Again, I think he's the backup X. I think he'll eventually take that role. I would not draft Calvin Ridley because Ridley, 1, didn't look good. 2, this team's not going to be good. So what does the 3rd or 4th option for you in this offense really get you? Sorry, I'm looking at like news reports as things go, because now the compensation for Kayshon Boutte came in, which is the 7th round pick, and Jalen Reed. I don't care about the compensation. I think Kayshon Boutte is going to start for this team. I don't think Ridley's a factor this season. He'll probably cede duties to Imanor by some point this season, and like, what are you getting if you get Calvin Ridley? Nothing. That offense, probably option 3 or 4. It's not worth it. Tony Pollard got the first drive and then sat, and then he still looked like he had juice on that wide open catch that we all watched together here earlier. Tajay Spears came in for the next drive, and then I don't know what would have ended up happening between him and Tony Pollard if they were on the field around the same time. Pollard came off the field and never came back. I think it'll be some sort of split, but I don't know what the split delineation will be. I don't know that it's exactly correct what happened in the first preseason game, but the coach speak was that this is like 2 bell cows, so it'll be some sort of split. I'm not really interested in either because I don't think that we're getting anything solid in fantasy, like bad offense. Don't think that either is going to consolidate all the work, even if an injury happened. Unless Nick Singleton is actually out for a long time, then I would be more interested in taking shots on these guys later. I actually had an opportunity to take Pollard or Chuba in my high stakes FFPC league, and I took Chuba over Pollard. This was like 6 days ago. Gunnar Helm and Daniel Bellinger pretty much split all the reps, even on pass downs. So, yeah, I think that I'm not really that interested in taking Gunnar Helm at all. I think that it's just not a fantasy friendly situation. Again, pass catching option number 3 or 4, maybe even 5 behind the running backs, and you're not getting a full route share, maybe 60% max in this situation. And I didn't come away very enthused about the Cam Ward situation either. I thought it was pretty poor. They were trying to manufacture like underneath stuff, and then anything that took more time to develop, there was no time to throw. Yeah, I'm just not investing in this Titans offense other than Wandale for the most part, because Wandale's price is pretty cheap. Already talked about Shador. Now we got some depth chart releases and roster projection releases. Cardinals keeping 4 running backs, with one being James Conner and another being Bam Knight, but it did say that maybe they would trade or move on from James Conner in this article. So again, I have James Conner and Trey Benson as 2 guys that are ranked a little bit higher than a lot of other traditional like backups, just because I think that they have the opportunity to potentially land in a fantasy friendly situation, or if an injury happens, like let's say Genty's injury happened and was for the season, and they got James Conner, like that would be more interesting than being the backup for, I don't know, the Cleveland Browns. So that's kind of how I think about this. There's an opportunity that both of those guys are not on this team. They do seem like they're going to keep Bam Knight. He does special teams work. Yeah, that's how I see it play out. The Giants running back room, it seems like Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary are kind of fighting for a job, or they might keep all 4 and then eventually maybe they trade somebody. So that's kind of interesting to me. TLDR, don't draft Tyrone Tracy. Tank Dell making the roster. They just made this trade. I wouldn't take shots on Tank Dell. I wouldn't take shots on Jalen Noel. Wouldn't take shots on Xavier Hutchinson. I'm not interested in any of this. I'm only interested in Nico, Kayshon Boutte, and Dalton Schultz. Browns wide receivers and tight ends. So no one has stepped up in this tight end 2 battle, which makes me think that the Browns are gonna go more 11 personnel heavy, which is good for KC Conception. And then Cedric Tillman isn't making the roster, so he's another guy that could be available for teams like the Raiders or Dolphins or whoever else needs a receiver. He's definitely available for those teams. Commanders, there's multiple things here. So RB by committee. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt's going to do the early down work. Rashad White, some third down work. Choose your fighter. I'm leaning Bill. And it seems like they're going to keep 4 running backs with Katron and Robert Henry, based off of John Kimes' report. But then we have, let's see if the Ben Standig one is up here somewhere. Yeah, it's up here. Ben Standig did something on this too, and he made a pretty bold statement. And I've been tracking consistency on all of this stuff and how good these guys are. Ben Standig's one of the best at actually like getting these things right. So he says Bill's pass blocking has improved enough that he should see some snaps on passing downs, and cannot rule out running back by committee, but that's a strong positive for Bill. Still a target for me in drafts. I would bet on Bill getting the majority of reps between the 2. I think that's huge to know. Like, not again, like he's going in the hundreds after a lot of other running backs. I'm very interested in Bill. I think you can get him decently cheap. If he steams up to like the 90s, I'd still probably take him. But yeah, I think he's a good bet right now. Okay, getting back to where we were, DeAndre Swift and the running backs Bears 3. Swift has been the best offensive skill player in camp. Again, I think he's a solid pick. He's finally gotten up to where I think I would actually like take him, where I would have taken him in my ranks. But I'm still taking him where he is now. And then the RB3 was a surprise with Salvon Ahmed over Roschon Johnson, given the preseason usage where Roschon Johnson played above Salvon Ahmed. Big because this is potentially the backup to Monungai, who is right now injured. So we'll see what ends up happening there. Wouldn't take shots on that situation in general, but still notable for like fab and other things that happen later. Bucky Irving and Kenneth Gainwell. Bucky is the starter. Gainwell a third down and change of pace. Pretty much what we've heard so far. RB2, I said this earlier, but Malik Davis for the Cowboys. He's projected ownership right now in Best Ball Mania like less than 1%. So I think he's a really good pick in contests at the moment. Darren Waller might not be a roster lock for the Panthers, so that's kind of interesting to me because it's like, why? Um, but this is speculative, so let's see if there's more information. I'm not taking Darren Waller in drafts right now. I'm not taking any tight end for the Panthers. The way this is all worded for the Chiefs running back situation makes me feel like Emmett Johnson is the RB2. I talked about him earlier. He's a late round target for me. The Chiefs are optimistic that Walker and Johnson can provide explosive gains on the ground. Smith appears ready to be a kickoff returner, and Amari DeMarcado provides the best option for a third down back with quality pass protection skills. Again, DeMarcado, pass pro, Emmett Johnson, backup RB, like running back duties. Chuba Hubbard supposed to be good for week 1 per Dave Canales. And then I said this, like, Chuba's dropping a lot. It's the yin and yang. Once he's falling, I want to invest in him rather than or Jonathan Brooks, who's the popular kid in school. So I'm taking Chuba now more than I'm taking Brooks. The Dolphins' latest roster projection, again, I said this earlier, but it said that Tutu's not making the team. Jalen Tolbert's still on the team based off of this, which is probably going to happen, I would say. But I would take shots on all of these like names that I listed here: Caleb Douglas, Chris Bell, Malik Washington, and Greg Dulcich. Greg Dulcich was named as like candidate to lead the Dolphins in targets, so that was interesting to me as well. The Colts RB2 situation. If you've been paying attention to this for multiple weeks now, DJ Ginn's been out of practice. Seth McGowan looks like he's going to take that RB2 job. There are running backs that will get released, and there's always a chance that somebody else signs, or that they sign a guy like Michael Carter, Amir Abdullah, whoever gets released that's out there. But I'm taking shots on Seth McGowan late in drafts. And then Malachi Fields listed as somebody who's firmly in the wide receiver 2 race. I think he'll probably win that job at some point this season, probably play a decent amount to early season, and then by midseason, maybe like has the full role. This team's going to do a lot of 12 personnel, 21 personnel, 22. That means he's going to be on the field in 2 wide receiver sets a lot. I'm excited about Malachi Fields. Late, I'm not a huge fan of his talent. I reviewed the film. It wasn't great, but these are late dart throws that you're just trying to see, like, hey, did I miss something in scouting? Like, was it just a bad day? Yeah, he's a guy that's going to project for less than 50% ownership in best ball tournaments that I'm excited about. Samaje Perine seems like he's the handcuff for Chase Brown. I'm not interested in Taj Brooks. He was on the roster bubble. Sounds like he's still struggling at doing a lot of stuff. So, yeah, I'm not that interested in him. Travion Henderson had slipped on a cut and departed practice, so I thought that was interesting. Yeah, that's everything. Are there any chat questions? I'm gonna get to that really, really quickly. All right. I'm looking, and okay, I'm gonna start with this one. You said Kittle is one of your flag plants. What are you projecting from him this season? Just drafted in my high stakes redraft and looking for confirmation bias. I'm expecting him to be a really good football player, like he always is. You can probably think that he's going to get built up a little bit, but we've seen what Kyle Shanahan does. He can't help himself when these guys are healthy. He leans into guys when they're healthy. If they say that they're going to play, and Kittle's one of the guys that is like, I don't IDGAF. I'm just going to go out there and do me. And so I expect that if he's healthy, that he's going to play a lot and be a major factor in this pass offense, because they don't really have like too many obvious choices. Like Mike Evans keeps kind of getting injured, and then Demarcus Robinson, Deebo Samuel. I just think he's going to play a strong role in this offense. So I'm very excited about him. I took him in my high stakes draft too, because I think that he's just a huge discount to guys like Colston Loveland, where if I looked up at the end of the season and saw him ranked like basically right next to those guys, I wouldn't be surprised. Curious, what would you add to Ginty to get Bijan for Dynasty? Whew, that's a good question. I don't know what it's going to take, but I would probably be willing to get rid of some receivers like, I don't know if people would be interested in Marvin Harrison. I would give up Marvin Harrison and Genty in a heartbeat for Bijan. Brian Thomas, Dunze. Those are the types of names. So like maybe like a 5th-round receiver, 6th-round receiver. I don't know if that's enough, but maybe like a 2nd or 3rd-round pick, if that would be enough too. Yeah. Thoughts on Booty impact on Nico? Lower target share, but better offense. I think this will be positive for Nico because I think he'll be able to. And I'm gonna write this on Twitter too, but you guys are getting it live. I think this is going to be able to move Nico around the offense more too, because Kayshon Boutte can play the X, which means that Nico can play the Z and play off the line of scrimmage and be more of a motion player. They can rotate between Z and X. I think this is a great thing for Nico Collins. Kayshon Boutte can do the deep threat stuff. They don't need Nico to do it anymore. I'm pretty excited about this. So, yeah, Nico wheels up still. I also think they'll pass the ball more because they have a more reliable option out there. Is the JCM undisclosed injury going to be a problem? No, I don't think so. I believe from reports that it was like not considered serious and like precautionary to sit. So I'm not worried about it. I can go find it, and I'll retweet it once I find it. But that's what I remember reading. If you knew Geno was starting every game, would Wilson go mid-round 2 for you? Yes, absolutely. Well, no, hold on. Maybe not absolutely. I think he would go in mid-round 3. Sorry. I read that as round 2. And I do think that Geno is going to play most of the games this season. I'm one of the few that believes that, but I think that this coaching staff is fighting for their jobs. I think the offense can look decent this season. I don't think that they're going to fire the coach mid-season. I think the offense will look decent and the defense won't look great, which is fine. They're going to show enough positivity because the offense is set up for success. They have a decent offensive line. They have some good weapons. And Breece Hall. I think that Geno is more likely to play the full season than most other people think. So I'm excited about Garrett Wilson this season. All right, that's all I have time for. Thank you guys for everything. I'm going to tweet about the Kayshon Boutte situation. So be sure you guys. 2026 Frank Reich scares me. Yeah, I'm not as scared about Frank Reich as most. He has had 3 pass offenses with Phillip Rivers, Andrew Luck, and I can't remember who the other one was. It might have been Phillip Rivers again. No, it was Carson Wentz that have ranked in the top 10 in the NFL. 2 of those names, Phillip Rivers was on his last legs. And then obviously Andrew Luck was good. And then Carson Wentz was like not the Carson Wentz that was like MVP candidate worthy when he was on the team that led the offenses to top 10 pass offenses. I think he can do it with Geno. Like this, they have a good enough situation, and I'm not as afraid as others. Anyway, for Zane and Nani, the cut up, the tight 10. Thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. I'll keep doing this throughout the season as well. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be news. There will be DFS related stuff. There will be draft related stuff that'll be interesting. Free agents, waivers. I'm going to keep up this show at least 3 times a week. Thank you guys for watching. Take care.